Petivity knows every pet has a story.
Why is my dog's digestion off?
Could I have known sooner that my cat was sick?
Petivity is reimagining pet care to care more proactively for the pets you love. Petivity's smart products and health kits give you data your pet can't share, so you can provide the best care possible. Give your pet the story they deserve with Petivity. Visit petivity.com to learn more. Petivity, powered by Purina.
No one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit purina.com/purple to learn more.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Hello everyone, it's Win and welcome to How We're the Podcast. And after almost a fortnight of having the Tuchel Bellingham England soap opera shoved down our throats, we can almost smell the proper football returning. So we've gathered a few fine gentlemen to preview tomorrow's game against Wolverhampton Wanderers at the Stadium of Light. So first up, to talk about what is looking more and more like a huge game the closer we get to it, we have the artist formerly known as Bomber. Hello, Bomber.
Hello, Chris. Yeah, it's feast or famine with me, isn't it? You either have me multiple times in a week or hear nothing from me in a month or so. But yeah, as always, mate, a pleasure to be sat here with you.
Yes, lovely to see you once again. Just very quickly, Bomber, while we're talking to you, we had Jonny and Andrew talking about memories of playing Wolves. What's your memories of Sunderland and Wolves games?
I've never played Wolves, mate. I'll be honest. I genuinely cannot think of a single Wolves game that sticks out in my mind, and maybe that's because of my tenure as a lads fan. But yeah, I genuinely, it was a good job that I wasn't necessarily on that particular discussion, because I'd have to research them, but I couldn't tell you. So let's just swiftly move on and see.
Right. I'm really glad I asked you that question, Bomber.
Yeah.
That was really
putting
useful.
Me on the spot and making me look like an absolute shit fan. Thank you.
Really useful to kick us off with. Thank you very much, Bomber. Well, we'll move swiftly on. Next up, we have our resident Sunderland encyclopedia, which is, of course, Andrew Smithson. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, how are you doing, Chris? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, let's go to the opposite, because we had some good memories of Roker Park, didn't we, the other day?
Yeah. There was a time, wasn't there, in the 90s where it seemed to be we were always up against Wolves, and they were a pretty big team in the second tier back then. So yeah, we had a couple of hard-fought games against them. There was a couple of red cards in there and various other stories. Late goals was the thing that always kind of jumped out at me. So hey, you never know, we might be in for some more entertainment tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, it was interesting talking to Johnny Phillips the other day about Wolves still ruin the day that Lee Howie crocked Jeff Thomas, which is quite interesting. But yeah. But anyway, last but not least, we have today's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as he subbed in late in the day to be a general hero as usual. We have Johnny Hawley with us. Hello, Johnny.
Hello, Chris. Yeah, I tell you what, that's a first for me to be compared to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Like, I think I'll take it as well. I'll let you have that one.
It's just because you look so young. To be fair, actually, I think you actually look older than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yeah, certainly the last couple of days I do anyway. It's been a rough old week.
Well, actually, it was funny we were talking the other day, Johnny. Well, it was interesting, actually. I hadn't thought about that when you said, actually, most of your Sunderland support in life, actually, Wolves have been in the league ahead of us.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because there's a handful of teams, and obviously every sort of age group has this, where, like, for me, yeah, Wolves, like I said, I mean, the last 7, 8 years or whatever, they've been above us, or certainly performing better than us. Even that season we were in the same league, which we touched on the other day. But then there's clubs like, I don't know, there's a whole generation of fans growing up now who only know Bournemouth as a Premier League team, or they only know Brighton as a team who challenge for Europe and stuff. And it is a bit mad when you stop and think about it. You know, or all the kids who've grown up today never watching Man United win a Premier League trophy. You know, even to the rest of us, that would be absolutely mental. Like, you know, I remember growing up and Man United won everything. So yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Those little sort of generational shifts you start to notice as you get a bit older.
Yeah, thanks for making us feel extremely old, Johnny.
I was going to say the same, yeah.
If it makes you feel better, I feel old when the kids think Bournemouth are good, if that helps.
Well, yeah, when I go back, and actually Oldham Athletic were a bloody good side when under Joe Royle, like top division and getting the cup finals and semi-finals and all sorts. But anyway, let's leave me feeling old well behind. Because look, we've got a few things to bring people up to speed on before we get into previewing the game. And Bummer, you talked about this earlier in the week, so I'm going to ask Andrew first, because we had the news that Stuart Harvey had left the club, which I found quite a surprise. You know, he's kind of been integral part of that team that's got us up from League One. Found some absolute gems, and people who you hear from and speak to within the game say how brilliant he is and how hardworking he is and all of that. And for whatever reason, he's left the club, which, you know, as somebody is, again, you hear people talking about hard work and talented. When you put those things together, it's got to be a sad thing that someone like that has left the club.
Definitely, because we've all had conversations in the past where we've only been too happy to see the back of certain people from the club. Stuart Harvey's not leaving with the people chasing him out of the city limits with pitchforks or anything. He does seem to have done a really good job. I mean, we can only know so much because the club are quite good at keeping their business internal, but all signs suggest that he did a really good job. There is a part...
So good you said it twice.
I don't even know how I managed that. There is a part of me sorry to see him go, because yes, all indications are that he did a really good job, and like you say, he was clearly really hard working. We saw loads of photos of him popping up here, there, and everywhere to watch games. So he seemed committed and happy to put the graft in. So that bit of me does make me a little concerned about him going. But then the other side of me is thinking, we've been through this before where members of staff have left, but the club have responded to it really well. Either there'll be a plan in place to get somebody new to take over his role, or as being suggested, some of the people already at the club are picking up his duties. So you've got to be fairly comfortable with the idea that whilst, yeah, sorry to see him go, wish him all the best, as a club, we should be okay to keep going on this trajectory for the time being.
Yeah. And there's anyone who regularly listens to How Are the podcast, you know, we love our background noises. And if anyone listened to the pod the other day with Ant's dog, which was unbelievable, because I was worried it was Ant and he was struggling at one point, but I was relieved when he said it was the dog. But yeah, Johnny, just your thoughts on it, because again, look, we don't know what the facts are. We don't know, and the lads kind of discussed it the other day. We don't know whether it's his decision. We don't know whether it's the club restructuring as a you know, consequence of Gasolfi coming in and that next stage, if you like. But again, for whatever reason it is, like me and Andrew were just saying there, it's kind of got to be a sad thing in some ways.
It's just very reminiscent of the way that we've had to adjust to the different trajectories of players and when they do and don't overlap with the clubs over the past sort of, I mean, particularly over the past summer, but generally since, you know, the model came in, and that's whatever it is, 8 minutes on model bingo, if anyone's still playing that from the summer. You know, we've all had to adjust, haven't we, to the idea of players.
Do we say the new model now?
Ooh, well, there you go. Do we need to split and have two categories?
Old model and new model.
Old model and new model. There you go. So you can start new model bingo. Gazolfi bingo. But yeah, we've had to adjust, haven't we? We've seen Joe Bellingham, we've seen Tommy Watson as the two highest profile recent examples. But you go back a bit further, you've got Jack Clark, you've got Ross Stewart. There's examples to choose from where, whether it's we've outgrown them, they've outgrown us, the timing just hasn't worked. It's not necessarily just a flat negative to lose good players. And I think we have to appreciate that it's also not necessarily just always a negative thing to lose good staff as well. There's quite clearly, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way to Stuart Harvey, but I nearly called him Steve Harvey there. That's a different podcast altogether, that. I don't mean any disrespect to him, but I think pretty obviously the pool of candidates is going to be both wider and potentially higher quality to fill a position like this when you're recruiting from, the top half of the Premier League than when you're recruiting from the top half of League One. So he's obviously done a brilliant job over the time that he's been at the club. And I thought his sort of farewell message that he put on his various medias after he left, I thought that was a really nice message and clearly showed that there's no hard feelings, I think, between him and the club, which is good to see because it'll be important, won't it, for us to, again, similar to how it is with players, where we've talked a lot over the summer about how we want to show future signings like, look, you come to Sunderland, we'll improve you, and when the time's right, we'll let you go. I think it's important that we show to all staff members, you come in, you do a good job with us, you're not just going to get, kicked out on your ear and treated like you never existed or whatever. We're going to be a positive environment in all senses. And then that, again, like I say, just raises the bar for the people you can bring in to replace these people who are leaving. And look, one day it'll be somebody we don't want to leave. It might be Labrise, it might be Speakman, it might be Gazolfi or whoever. And hopefully by the time that happens, the club's just so used to operating this way that it doesn't even ruffle any feathers. It's just right. Well, we'll go back to the shortlist. We see who's next on the list to come in and replace them, and hopefully they do a better job. So yeah, like I say, hopefully that starts here. This is kind of the first big test of that, isn't it? So it'll be interesting to see how we progress. Although, last thing I will say, it's interesting, isn't it, that we talked a lot, particularly in the Championship, about how we'd have the replacement player in the door 6 months or a year beforehand, before we needed them. Well, Gazolfi came in at the start of the summer and Harvey's only just left. So maybe it's happened again.
Yeah. Well, I'd be surprised if he stayed out the game for too long. I think he's a talent and someone will snap him up. So moving on, and we'll bring Botmer in, who peeked behind the curtain, has been whispering sweet nothings to his other half. It's a good job he's been on mute. But we'll bring up the topic of the fixtures being moved in December. So first we've got the Liverpool game, which will kick off at 8:15 now on Wednesday, the 3rd of December. I thought that was going to be, when I heard the kickoff time, I thought that was going to be one scheduled on Prime, but it's actually Sky Sports, according to the Sunderland website. And then, of course, we've got the derby against the Mags at the Stadium of Light. That was originally the 13th of December, which was the Saturday, of course, just on the fixture list. That's going to now take place on Sunday, the 14th of December, which I don't think is too surprising to many, although I did think it might have been an earlier kickoff at 2 o'clock, but I think they've got restrictions on when they can show games on the Sunday, which is also on Sky. But yeah, it's good to see us getting picked up for some of these games, but the derby's no surprise, Bomber?
No, like you say, the derby isn't a surprise at all, really, other than the kickoff time. It was always going to move to a Sunday, wasn't it? Because even those games that move to 12:30 on a Saturday, it just gives people an excuse to get in the pub at 7 o'clock instead of the usual 10, 11 o'clock, which is a little bit more difficult to do that early on a Sunday morning. But moving it to or having it kick off at 2 rather than 12 kind of negates that a little bit. And I'm sure the police would have probably had something to say about it. But as what usually happens in football, the money talks and the weight is firmly behind the broadcasters, and Sky have decided they want the game and they've decided they want to play it at 2 o'clock. So, that's where it will be. I did think, or part of me did think, and I think we mentioned it on the last podcast that I was on with Martin and yourself, Chris, when we were talking about the timings, etc. And I think everybody expected it to be possibly a 12 o'clock kickoff or a 12:30 kickoff, and maybe TNT or one of those other kind of secondary broadcasters might have picked it up because Sky might not have been asked with it because it's too much hassle to deal with the police. But then you counter that with the fact it's the first, proper league time weird derby, in however many years. And it's an extra, I guess it's an extra special one. It's an extra pair of eyes. There'll be interest, or even more interest, outside of the Northeast and outside of Sunderland fans and Newcastle fans. All football fans and fans of the Premier League will want eyes on the first time we're derby in a very much a number of years. So Sky seem to have got their way. It doesn't make any difference to me. I'll not get a ticket for it, and I'll watch it on the telly, whether it was 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock. The Liverpool one was a bit more interesting, moving it on to 8:15. But just looking at the fixtures for that week, it looks like there's games on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of December that are all 8:15 kickoffs. So there's obviously something that Sky are going to be marketing over that December period, that early December period. But yeah, I've gone a long way around of saying that I'm not surprised it's on a Sunday, but I am quite surprised they've given everybody an extra 2 hours to drink and potentially not handle their drink so well and cause the police some problems. But it is what it is, and hopefully everybody will be that wrapped up in the occasion that it's the first one in however long that there won't be anybody fancies punching horses or the other.
Yeah, you set our clocks by how long it takes us to bring that up. But Andrew, actually, just quickly, Andrew, I was going to mention this one because someone raised it. I think it was Neil in the chat the other day, which was an interesting one. You go back to 96, 97 when the away fans were banned that year because we hadn't played each other for a while. So, the tensions were high around then. So the police went, no away fans. It was strange that kind of a couple of years later, the first time we played each other, it was an evening kickoff at St. James's. And now you wouldn't dream of doing that now, which it's weird to think back at that, isn't it?
It is. Every season there seems to be a different take on it because we've had bubble trips where fans are kind of shuttled in. I know the cup game a couple of years ago that they were getting bussed in from the early hours from Newcastle. And then there's been some games where fans have just been left to make their own arrangements to get the games. Like you say, sometimes in the past, there were nighttime kickoffs. I, like you, can't see any more evening starts coming along anytime soon. Bombers, similar to me, I would have expected it to have kicked off a little bit earlier. And when I say kicked off, I mean the game kicked off, not the... Not the scrapping,
not the steeplechase, and
yeah. But it's probably at 2 o'clock because obviously Sunday morning, Sunderland and Newcastle fans will be sitting next to each other in all the churches, singing the hymns together. And we'll probably all walk to the ground arm in arm just in time for that 2 o'clock kickoff. So that's probably the thinking there.
Yeah. Well, just moving on from that, Jonny, you're going to the game, and actually one of the things in Sunderland, which is a good thing, obviously this weekend, is Regisler Bridge, or Keel Crossing, as it's been officially named, will be opened for use, which is going to be nice to see, isn't it?
Well, it's going to be nice, but it's also going to be a bit of a double-edged sword, I think, because the car park that we park in is right next to it. And it was a lovely little hidden gem for a long time. Not many people wanted it. It was just a short walk to the big bridge. And now I reckon it's going to take about 45 minutes just to get down on the floor at the end of the game. But I'm looking forward to it, actually. And I'm realising as I say that how criminally nerdy it is to say I'm looking forward to using the new bridge. But it just feels like it's been talked about for that long and all the crap with naming it and then the delayed opening. I'm like, I just want to get on the bridge now, lads. Come on. Just open it, but it'll be good. It'll be nice to see because I think there was a picture, wasn't it, the other day doing the rounds of like the red and white lights when it had gone dark, shining down. So it's just nice to see a little bit more of the tangible sort of physical representation of the club and stuff in the local infrastructure. Which again, as I'm saying it, I'm thinking, God, that's boring, but actually it is quite nice, isn't it? just another little mark of Sunderland improving and having a bit more investment and stuff, which I think is something everybody wants to see.
Yeah, it is. It is nice, Andrew, and someone who just lives up the road from it. I mean, but actually, I remember going way back to when the stadium was first built. These type of things were talked about almost immediately when the stadium was built, and what we're talking far too long later, almost 25, 30 years later, it's finally up.
Yeah, it was a generation ago, and there was a long time when the council in general just it wasn't on the agenda. But things have changed. Obviously, the whole city is coming on. So yeah, this is an important link, not just for match day, but just for all sorts of things that are happening around there. I do think though it's going to be quite odd because the Wearmouth Bridge, we've all seen like iconic shots of thousands of fans filing over it. It's been part of the match day tradition for so many people for so many years, whether at Roker or the stadium. And I wonder if it's going to feel a little bit unusual tomorrow. The Wearmouth Bridge might just be, I don't know, it might just seem like any other day. So it's part of the changing landscape. And like Johnny, I'm super excited to actually use the bridge. And having had a couple of visits there through work, I'm now claiming that I'm responsible that I constructed the bridge. So, that's assuming, of course, there's no last minute hiccups. If it goes wrong, I'm washing my hands of it. But for the time being, that's my handiwork. Thank you very much, lads. You're all very welcome.
There you go. Everyone has Andrew to thank. But look, let's get into the football. Bomber, I want to come to you on, because obviously we've had this 2-week break, which I've been banging on about at every given opportunity. But we've got the impact of the international break. I mean, is it something that we just need to stop thinking about? Because international breaks, when we've been in the Championship or League One, we've seen how many players have been called up and how many we're missing. Are we missing anyone? Do we actually have more players than most going off to internationals? But is it something we just need to stop thinking about because we're in the Premier League now and we're almost in this sport as everyone else?
Well, it's an occupational hazard, isn't it, of being a Premier League team now, and of having good players. You should want the players in your team that are good enough that they get selected for their respective national teams. And with that, we can't really complain or be too fueled with anxiety when they do go off to play for these national teams, because, like I say, they're doing it because they're one of the best players in their respective countries. It's just, I think it's basically for us in particular as a team that is, over recent times, not really used to having players go out on international duty. All right, we've had a few go out with England under 21s whilst we were in kind of League One Championship, and then you've obviously got Ballard and Trey Hume, who go off with Northern Ireland. But the number of international players that we have has increased fourfold over one summer. So it's, like I said, it's an occupational hazard of being a Premier League team. I think every single Premier League team will have at least 30% of their team, or their squads, made up of internationals. That's what makes the league so attractive to broadcasters. That's what makes it one of the most watched and best leagues in the world. And international duty is never a problem unless people come back injured from them, and especially key players. I guess by definition, your international players are going to be your key players because they're going to be your best players. But yeah, I mean, it's a frustrating one, and you send. I think the problem I've got with the international breaks isn't necessarily that we have loads of players going out on to them. It's the frequency of them. So it's the momentum that it potentially breaks up, particularly for a club like us who has had a good start to the season. Man United result and first half performance aside, it has been a very good, and everything is very positive around the club. And then all of a sudden, that's broken up for a week, and there's no way to, Lebris hasn't really had a way to prepare properly for Wolves, which is a game that we're all eyeing up, thinking we should and could probably win that. But I won't have had 50% of what would be a starting lineup to kind of prepare for that. So it's a difficult one. I love the fact that we have players out on international duty, but I think the frequency of them, and obviously everybody, you just hold your breath hoping that they're going to come back fully fit, which kind of remains to be seen looking at what some of the things that are coming out of the club. It remains to be seen whether or not we're going to lose 1, 2 of the players that have been out, or whether they'll be back in.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
My marathon isn't about time. It's about my 26 friends with intellectual disabilities I'm dedicating each mile to. I'm Joseph. I'm running my first Bank of America Chicago Marathon for Special Olympics Illinois to help give my friends a place to shine.
Join Bank of America in supporting Joseph's cause. Give if you can at BofA.com/supportjoseph. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. References to charitable organizations is not an endorsement by Bank of America Corporation.
Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
And Jonny, just on that, on the break, and Bomber touched on it, but how do we define the impact of that being that it follows a defeat? Does that change things? Because that if you follow it up, if you have a win and then go into an international break, you almost sit back and relax a bit. You can breathe a bit, but after a defeat, you want to get into it straight away. So does that change the mindset as you go through a 2-week break if you're beaten in the game before, or if you win?
I think it has to, because I think the crucial thing in all of this is just timing, isn't it? It's obviously we've had a couple of players certainly at least pick up knocks on international duty, as Bomber said. Whether they'll be in or out of the actual game at the weekend remains to be seen. But let's say Siddiqui was out. Hopefully he's not, but let's say he was. It wouldn't be half as bad if Diarra wasn't already out, would it? Then it would be, oh, well, we've lost one, but we've got the other, which is what it was when Diarra got injured. Not on international duty, but just at the Academy of Light, by the sounds of it. But that it's, when trying to assess the impact of any of these things, you have to take the context of where the team's at into account. And I think for us, in terms of the timing of the international break between the United game and this game, I think it's almost in some ways a good thing, I think. And I understand that obviously the momentum's been there the start of the season, and everything has been, incredibly positive, and we've picked up some brilliant results. But I think it's not maybe the worst thing in the world that before this game we're kind of forced into a bit of a reset, including mentally, because I think as great as it is to be riding the momentum, and, every time you win a game, you want the next game to be tomorrow and you want to keep playing and keep playing. I think sometimes it's important to know whether this squad is capable of doing this. Whether we can, momentum aside and ignoring all of that, can we just reset, bang, and go again? And can we go and take a result against Wolves? Because due to the break and then the United game beforehand and stuff, I don't know about you guys, but it feels like a long time since I was sitting watching us beat Forest. It does not feel like yesterday. And it feels a hell of a long time since we played West Ham and Brentford at home. Those big home wins. So, yes, we had the momentum, and the international break broken that up a bit. But I think in some ways it was starting to dissipate a bit naturally anyway. So I think going into a big game, and this, it's maybe not a must-win, but it's certainly a big game. This is a good opportunity for Lebris to get a bit more of a measure of where his squad's at mentally, I think. And as I say, obviously Diarra's injured. Regardless, that there may be one or two who, even if they're not long term, the weekend may come just slightly too quick for them. Then it's going to be interesting to see, like I say, the mental reset on the one hand, and then also in a big game like this at home, even if we've got a slightly depleted team, can we go out there and make a little bit of a statement and win the game? Because I think if we can, then, and I've said this on a couple of other pods, it's just another thing ticked off the list of what this team can do. You know, we've seen so many different facets of them now and results they've picked up. This would be just yet another one where you can go, right, can we, on the back of an international break and a defeat and a bit of, can we just shake it off and go and win a relegation 6-pointer? And if you can, I think it's a huge knot in your, on your bedpost, isn't it? Which metaphor's starting to get slightly mixed a bit here, but it's a big weapon to have in your arsenal. Might be a safer one to fall back on.
Jonny bigging up his love life there, but
Johnny Blue's got a reputation of gold, mate.
Yeah, and I was thinking, eighth game of the season, and it took 26 and a half minutes into the podcast to say it's a must-win.
I said it's not a must-win.
You mentioned the words must-win because it comes into the equation.
I'm staying out of this one.
Well, I'm going to come to Andrew on it because, look, and it's got something to do with the momentum Jonny was talking about with the Premier League. These two international breaks and the fact that, looking at midweek games, very rarely have we got midweek games on the calendar. So there's almost this build-up to every game that bigs it up and makes it this huge event, doesn't it? But this one against Wolves, as Jonny touched on, we're building up to it, and it's the momentum going into it, where we are, where they are. How big is this game?
I think it's big because it presents, without counting our chickens, I think it presents a pretty good opportunity of getting 3 points. And we've had a great start, but that doesn't mean you can afford to let things slip and then just give points away. I agree about the momentum and the international breaks being a bit of a pain. Certainly for fans, they are. I don't know if some of the players might actually enjoy the change of routine. It does work for both teams, though, and Wolves will presumably have also had a lot of players here, there, and everywhere representing their countries. And you could argue that our best performance of the season came on the back of the international break. When we went to Palace, we got a really good point down there. But yes, I'm not going to say must win or 6-pointer or anything like that. But this is a game where you would expect Sunderland to win. So we need to make sure we give ourselves the best chance of doing that.
Yeah. Well, Bomber, your speciality is the must-win game, so I've got to come to you on this. But again, is it that huge? I mean, they are bottom of the league, but I mean, then you look at the fixtures after. We go to Chelsea, Everton, Arsenal at home, Fulham away. It really starts kind of building up and getting tough after that. So does that make it even bigger?
In my opinion, I'll caveat that at the start. It really does. And whilst I can row back a little bit on the statements I made on the previous podcast about every single game being a must-win game. Out of context, it isn't a must-win game. But when you add in that context that we've got to go to Chelsea, we've then got to play Everton, we've got to play Arsenal. You look at that run, and you think our best chance of getting 3 points out of this next run of 4 or 5 games is this one. So in that kind of context of this mini run of games, it is a must-win game for me again. In the context of a whole season, and it'll be easier to look back after these 5 games and go, we didn't need to win that Wolves game after all, because actually we've pulled off some sort of miraculous 1-0 smash and grab at Stamford Bridge. But as we look at it and look forward, like I say, they are bottom of the league. We've beaten and taken points off of teams that are much better on paper and on the pitch than Wolves already this season. So the expectation is there. So like I said, by that definition and with the context of what's to come, it for me, it is a must-win game. It's one that we should and really need to take 3 points from. Just if nothing else, just to avoid that pressure build-up. Because if you let's say we lose against Wolves, then we've got to go to Stamford Bridge, and with all the best will and the most happy clapping in the world, we're not really expecting to go to Stamford Bridge and pick anything up. Then there's a home game to Everton, who, look like they're on some sort of resurgence. It's the return of he who shall not be named. So let's say you end up in a draw in that situation. You've taken 1 point from 3 games, and then you've got Arsenal next. So yeah, for me, in that context, it is a must-win game.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Looking at that, Jonny, and I remember Allardyce talking about the identified games as saying, right, well, in this group of games we're aiming for 10 points, in this we're aiming for 4 points. I mean, there's this one really where if you don't get 3 points, you're playing catch up a little bit with the others.
It's partly that, and it's also partly the fact that Wolves are one of the ones who are going to be trying to catch us. Certainly at the moment, the way that the points tallies fall, they're the ones looking up the table towards us and thinking, well, if, obviously they're rock bottom, they'll be thinking, well, we'd overhaul some sides here, and they're going to be looking up and thinking, well, Sunderland's one that we need to be targeting, because at the start of the season, they'd have been fancied to be in the bottom 3. So if we want to be out of it, we're going to put them in it. And obviously, as everybody knows who's watched football for any length of time, the reason it's called a 6-pointer is because it's not just the 3 you get, it's the 3 they don't get. So for me, this game against Wolves is certainly a must not lose, because, if it's a drab 0-0 or even if it's we're 1-0 up, don't put the game to bed and they jam me a dodgy equaliser late on, whatever it is, as long as we don't lose, they haven't gained any points on us. And I know it's only, at the middle of October and still a hell of a lot of football to be played, and there'll be teams who look dead now who'll be well out of it come May, and there'll be teams who look amazing now who'll be right in the thick of it come May. But we all know, I think, that Sunderland and Wolves are going to be 2 of the teams who are in this conversation, at least. So yeah, for me, I think it's just as important to stop them from picking up any momentum as it is for us to get any. That being said, I do think Bomber's right to identify the fact that we are about to go on a pretty, not a disgusting run of games. That's for December, but certainly not the prettiest run of games in the world. So if we don't pick 3 points up here, where it then comes from is a different and slightly thornier conversation than it would otherwise need to be. But I do think this is it's a good opportunity, and we shouldn't be feeling too much pressure, but I do think it is still a really important game.
The only thing I would say, in addition to that, Jonny, and you're right, it's stopping Wolves from getting 3 points or stopping them from gaining any on us. But just in terms of it being must win, let's not forget that we're currently 8th, and it's not, in terms of it being a must win game, in picking 3 points up, it's not just stopping Wolves from gaining on us. It's keeping that distance to from the likes of Burnley and Leeds and everybody else who's in that bottom half of the table, who will be looking to push us further and further down. So it's just keeping them at arm's length, because it's not just Wolves who will be looking to catch us. Burnley will have an eye on and say, look, if we want to stay up, we need to finish above Sunderland. And the more points we can put on the board and keep them at arm's length, the more pressure is going to pile on them. When we want to be in a position where, okay, let's say Burnley win at the weekend, it doesn't matter because we've beaten Wolves. So it's not just Wolves catching us up, as everybody who's going to end up being in that relegation scrap. Not suggesting that we are, but if we are, it's not just going to be Wolves. It's going to be, I think it's probably going to be six or 7 teams this season, possibly.
Yeah. Andrew, just on that pressure that we've been talking about a little bit, looking at the games so far, is this going to be a strange one? Because I would say I was looking at the games earlier on, and this is probably the first where we're really thinking we should win and we should get 3 points. Does that have an impact on it?
It might do, but based on what we've seen so far, that the camp seem fairly level-headed. I don't think they'll be feeling anything. They'll be feeling anything too different to other games. I'm just going to change the angle ever so slightly here. I know I can be over-optimistic and get myself overexcited, but whatever we want to achieve this season, Wolves at home should be a winnable game. We're all talking about, does it keep us away from the relegation spots? But if we do want to do more than simply finish 17th. If we are looking at a mid-table finish, if we are looking about eking into 8th or 9th, Wolves are one of those sides you would expect Sunderland to be beaten. We've all said we need a couple of teams, unexpected teams, to be down in the relegation mix, because we can't just have the newly promoted clubs going down all the time. So there is that to think about as well. I agree with what the lads are saying about we don't want Wolves to suddenly start picking up any points and getting any momentum behind them. But for Sunderland, we are going into the game as favourites, I would say. But that is because we've assembled a squad now that neutral observers are looking at and thinking they're not just going to be scrapping around hoping to scrape into 17th. Sunderland could be a half-decent team. We now just need to prove it.
Yeah, and we're going to come on to the starting 11 in a minute, Bomber, but just talking about that pressure to maybe get 3 points or to go out and win the game, do you think that's going to have an impact on how the manager approaches the game, just in mentality? That, in a lot of these games, even if you look at the Villa game, the opening period was to keep it tight. Do you think we might be looking at it slightly differently in this one?
It's a tough one because to have a definitive opinion on, because all through the season so far and all through pre-season and even going into, the evidence was there in the last 6 games of last season and the playoff run in that Lebris obviously takes each opponent at face value and will devise a plan of what he thinks is the best way to get 3 points on any particular day against any particular opposition. And it's worked for him so far. We do have a style of play. It's high tempo when it needs to be. It's sit back and soak up pressure when it needs to be and try and count on the counter. And I don't think that's necessarily going to change just because we're playing Wolves and just because of the games that we've got coming up. I don't think it will come into his mind, we need to win this because we got Chelsea and Arsenal and Everton coming up. I think he will do whatever formula he's got for home games currently has been working. Our home form, if you look at the results, have been really, really good in terms of obviously the points on the board, the results, the fact that we've been scoring goals and not really conceding them. So I don't think he's going to change all that much. The only time or the only situation or scenario that he might is personnel, which leads us on to that conversation about what a starting 11 might be. But it's not necessarily been confirmed one way or the other. Things look positive for the likes of Siddiqui, but if we are, I think I said this on the last podcast as well, we've spent so much time raving about that midfield 3 all pre-season and all so far this Premier League season. If we are going to end up with Diarra and Siddiqui out, that leaves a massive hole and some massive shoes to fill when we're losing 66% of that midfield 3 that has been so perfect for us. That's not to say that we don't have capable players, but they're very, very different players. That's the only way I can see us changing our approach or changing our style or how we're going to go about getting those 3 points is what players he has available to him.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Big news. Sephora is now on Uber Eats. So if you find yourself facing a beauty emergency, like needing a last-minute gift, or you're just out of your favorite mascara, again, don't panic. We got you. Order now and get $10 off on Sephora orders of $50 or more on the Uber Eats app. Order now. Offer ends October 30th. 1 order per customer. Additional terms apply. See app for availability. Delivery fees may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
Just moving on to you, Jonny, just about Wolves in terms of their mentality, because there's pressure on us maybe to win the game, but Wolves are looking to get their first win on the board. I mean, do you think that's do you think that means it's a bad time to play them? That they're going to be so determined to get it, or a good time to play them because they're going to be so nervous about getting beat again? I mean, is it a good time to play Wolves?
It's a difficult question to answer that, actually. I think the pessimist in us wants to say it's actually a bad time to play them because you kind of go, well, by the law of averages, eventually they're going to pick up, they're going to pick up some more points. They're not going to average whatever points per game they're on now for the rest of the season. Not with the talent they've got in the squad, I don't think. They've got the likes of Strand Larsen up front, and even players like Hwang's a right pest, and they've got some quality players in that team. Hopefully they haven't got enough so that they don't beat us, and then maybe they get relegated and save us a place. But they're not Southampton of last season. They're not the Derby team of 2008. They're not one of these. So eventually they're going to be picking up wins. So hopefully it's not against us. So from that point of view, I'm maybe a little bit on edge. But otherwise, I think probably it's quite a good time to play them, really, because as we say, we're not 100% sure what the crack's going to be with the fitness of Siddiqui and Alderete, although it does sound like they might just be all right and might be able to at least play a part in the game, which would be a huge boost for us. And then aside from that, I kind of touched on it before, we've got a bit of a chance to reset here and not take the pressure off, because there's always going to be pressure, but we certainly have a chance to just kind of go, right, we're not off the back of any particular result. That was a few weeks ago. We've not, it's not like we've just had something tumultuous happen over the past few weeks, which it's felt like has been the case at every other point until now this season. We're either just off the back of the summer, or we were still in the middle of the summer and all the stuff that was happening there. Then we've been bedding in new signings, and feels to me like the first game where we just get to go, right, everybody breathe. What is this Sunderland team? Let's start seeing it from now, because all of the upheaval, all of the whirlwind of change that should have reasonably stopped, as long as we haven't got some horrific injuries coming back in, which it doesn't sound like we do. This to me feels like the first chance we get to, show this Sunderland team, this edition of Regis Libris' Sunderland, to me kind of starts now, because you can almost not write off, but you can almost you can excuse away anything from that first 7 games, because first time back in the Premier League for 8 years, the summer, the momentum, the list goes on. It feels like now we're on a bit more of an even keel. So that to me suggests, based on how good I think the team is and how good Libris is, that it should be a really good time for us to play Wolves, because a prepared and fit Sunderland team should be a real prospect to be feared for a lot of teams in this league, particularly at the Stadium of Light.
Yeah. Well, look, let's get into that starting 11. And look, the news that kind of came out of the press conference in terms of that fitness was, I think there's a chance that Alderete and Siddiqui might be in. But for the purpose of this, let's assume Alderete is in and Siddiqui is out for the purposes of this conversation. Because, look, if Siddiqui's fit, he's in the starting 11, isn't it? So I don't think we need to really debate that one. So we'll start with you, Andrew, and we'll start at the back, because look, the manager threw in a curveball, or a couple of curveballs really, with the team against Man United. But there's been a lot of calls for him to play 5 at the back. And Ballard was good for Northern Ireland, but do you think he'll change anything in terms of formation?
Well, it's a really interesting question. We keep going back to this a lot, don't we? And I, in the past, have not been against going to 5 at the back, but I didn't necessarily think it was the option we would take. I have been, over the last few days, thinking about it. And up until the press conference, I had been working on the assumption Alderete was was guaranteed to miss the game. That now might not be the case. On the basis that Alderete was missing, I did see us going to a 5 at the back. I felt that might be a good way to get the best out of Masuaku at wing back, because we've all said his advantages, his strong points are going forward. Now, if you're at home to a team who are struggling for confidence, you want somebody who can bomb on down the wing, more so than you need a left back who's sitting and being a more traditional defensive type player. If Alderete is playing, and I personally hope he does, because I really rate him, I think he's been brilliant for us. I just think we go back to that idea that Lebris won't want to mix too many things up. He likes, where possible, for there to be familiarity and players to be well versed in what they need to do. It's a tricky one, though, because Ballard is there. Ballard himself is brilliant, and I can well understand the keenness to get him in the team. I very rarely watch international football, but I caught a few minutes of their game against Germany, who were one of the strongest teams in the world, and Ballard didn't look out of place. He looked more than comfortable at that level. So for me, it purely depends on Alderete's availability, and then we make those decisions.
Yeah. Well, just another one at the back, and for listeners who can't see, Bomber has joined this call by calling himself Bom Masuaku. And the debate is about Masuaku being at left back, and Gav's called for Hume to move over to left back and maybe bring someone else in a full back. But do you think you'll still get the nod?
If I was making the decision and assuming Alderete was fit, then I would probably say no. And that's not a slight on him. I'm kind of echoing what Gav said in the Q&A pod that we did. I think I would prefer at the moment anyway to see Trey Hume at left back, and then possibly Mukiele out on the right, and then have Alderete and Ballard as a back four. I just think that at the moment I don't want to sound too hypercritical, because he has been decent, although he struggled against United. But then, as we mentioned, United kind of doubled up on him, and he didn't really have that much help in front. So maybe I'm doing him a bit of a disservice. But I just think that after a couple of performances where he possibly has come into a bit of criticism, just taking him out of the firing line against a team who we don't necessarily expect to be as all over us as Manchester United were in that first 30 minutes, might actually be beneficial for the team. But then that said, as I'm talking about it, I'm losing confidence in what I'm saying, because equally Trey Hume hasn't really been the most adventurous this season. He hasn't been the Championship Trey Hume with the overlaps and the bombing forward. So then there is a counter argument that actually, with Masuaku's strengths being getting forward and in attacking rather than defending in recent weeks, against a team like Wolves who won't necessarily pin us back, is it actually beneficial for us to throw him in, give him a bit of confidence, and let him put him in a decent performance? So I still think if it was me, I would take him out, and all being well, i.e. Alderete is fit, we go with that back four that I just mentioned. I think if Alderete isn't fit, I think that back four kind of picks itself, in that you have Masuaku, Ballard, Mukiele and Hume. So yeah, I think it all rests on the fitness of Alderete, really.
Yeah. And of course, as I said, we've got problems in the midfield with Siddiqui, Jonny. But let's assume he's out. So what does the manager do in those central areas and the wide positions as well, because he's changed them up recently?
Well, I was just going to say the wide position's actually my immediate thought when you talk about the midfield, because of Enzo Lefebvre. And I think if, let's say, Siddiqui is out, then there's a massive hole to fill in the midfield. I think and obviously Diarra's injured as well. Look, the Dan Neil situation is clearly complicated. There's obviously things that are being considered behind the scenes that we're not privy to as to why he has or hasn't been on the pitch certain amounts, because I think on pure ability, I think he's merited more than the sort of 30 seconds he's had up to this point. So I would say the chances of Dan Neil getting a start are low, as long as there are other options. So to me, it would seem the obvious solution would be, obviously, Granit Xhaka keeps his place, and then it would be Rig and Lafay would be the other two names that I'd be putting in there. Because with it being a home game that we're probably going to want to try and look. We're never going to be a Pep Guardiola team with 75% of the ball and playing that kind of football under Labrie. So nor would I want us to. But I think we're going to be expected to keep hold of the ball a little bit better, take a bit more care going forward, kind of be the team setting the tempo a little bit. And I think a Lafay, Rig, Xhaka midfield gives you the options for that. Obviously, then the consideration is you're losing something defensively on the left-hand side, no matter who you plug in there, whether it's Adingra, whether it's, you can pick names out of a hat, whether you put Talby on the left, whether you put Isidore out there, whoever it is, they're not a defensive player, are they? Whereas Lafay has the engine and has the defensive work and grafts a lot to be able to cover for his fullback. And particularly if Masuaku is going to get the nod there, I'd feel a hell of a lot more comfortable if he had Enzo Lafay in front of him than if he had Adingra in front of him again, like he did at Old Trafford, where he obviously struggled. So, yeah, there's a lot of options. Like I say, for me, I think the three I'd be picking in midfield would be Xhaka, Lafay, Rig. And then I think out wide, we're actually quite blessed with options for once in this area. And I think it's an area of the pitch that we've had good players in, but not good options in over the past few years. Obviously, we know Romain Mundle's still not fit, but I'd be happy to see Talby on the left. I think he's looked extremely dangerous when he's been running at defenders from that side and able to cut in on his right foot. And obviously sort of indirectly created the chance for Xhaka to nod through for Isidore against Villa by doing that exact thing. So I'd from an attacking point of view, I'd be really happy with that. And then on the right-hand side, again, you've got options. You've got Mayenda could play out there. You've got Talby himself could be playing on the right instead of the left. There's plenty of combinations we could fit that front three into. Try saying that 10 times fast. But yeah, I think the wide areas I'm really not concerned about. I think I would trust whatever Labrie picks to be suitable for the opposition on the day. And actually, Mr. Bom Masuaku is just saving us as well, because he's helpfully pinged into the chat something that I completely forgot to mention, which is the idea of Geertruida playing in midfield, which obviously is somewhere that he can play. For me, the reason I wouldn't line up like that is twofold. One, we're at home against Wolves. I think we can't be playing two holding midfielders. Just personally, it doesn't sit right. And I'm counting Xhaka as a holding midfielder there. And two is, in defence, I'd be playing Trey Hume left back no matter what, because he's decent going forward. I don't want to see Masuaku starting there in such an important game. I'd be playing Hume left back, and then whether Alderete is fit or not, because then either Mukiele can move to the right, Alderete and Ballard are in the middle, or Geertruida can go to right back. And I think we've seen like in the little cameos he's made, haven't we, from Geertruida, that he's clearly comfortable just slotting in wherever defensively. He may not give you his best performances in certain positions, but yeah, don't take it personally, Arthur, but I would do anything possible to have you not starting this game.
So, yeah, Andrew, I'm going to come on to you. So, what do you think he's going to do in those forward positions? Because, look, there's a lot of confusion here between saying, actually, we might change Masuaku out for Hume, who's more defensive, but, we're looking to beat Wolves and be on the front foot. And then you've got the game plan of Siddiqui, where we attack down the left, but Siddiqui's the one who does the covering. So it's almost changing our game plan a little bit. And there's calls for Brobbey to play up front with Isidore and Mayenda out wide to really go for it. So what do you think he's going to do?
You're right. There's a lot of confusion, and between us, as we're all speaking and going through our thoughts on it, we're all kind of like double thinking what we're saying, because it's that word Johnny said a few times, and we've said in previous pods, we have got options. This is a damn sight better to be having these conversations. I know I'm repeating myself because I've made this point before. All of these conversations are made trickier by the fact we've got players who are capable. In the past, you're just thinking, I'll just be pleased to get 11 players out on the pitch who are half decent, whereas we do have these options. One of the reasons I was wondering we might go to a 5, particularly if Aldrete is not playing, is because if you keep Masuaku as a left wing back, that allows you to bring Lefay in the middle. I don't think you can have Masuaku as a traditional fullback and a Dingra. That just didn't work against Manchester United. But if Masuaku has a bit of protection behind him, that frees up Lefay to go in the middle, because I think Lefay is the closest we have to matching Sadiqi's energy. Sadiqi, the amount of ground he covers is phenomenal. Lefay can go a long way to matching that. That then, Lefay in the middle, that then means he can also pop up just behind your forwards. I know the question was about forwards, Chris, and trust me, I am going to get there. Lefay can then maybe end up in that kind of number 10 pocket and support who plays up front. For me, personally, I'd be sticking with Broby. Isidore is fantastic, particularly at home. There was a stat somebody said on one of the pods this week, I believe, that Wolves have got a really bad record for conceding late. If that's the case, who do you want to come off the bench in those final stages of a game? It's Wilson Isidore, because that's when he's scoring his goals at the moment. So you can maybe afford to keep him on the bench and keep him fresh should we need to throw the kitchen sink at them late on. In the meantime, we need to give Broby a good run of 4-5 games to fully get up to speed. And then, if it's still not working out, I like him at the moment. I think he's contributing. But there's a couple of question marks over him still. Not everybody's as convinced. But the only way we'll know for sure is if we give him a run and a real opportunity to find his feet. And on those two wings, as has been mentioned, we do have a few options. I wouldn't mind Chris Rigg playing out on the right, because he can... What you smirking at, Chris? If I...
Johnny's got us going because the amount of times we're seeing options again.
So, but it's true, and hey, we should enjoy it. It's such a nice
thing. We are, definitely.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, as was mentioned, we went ages before Bombers come up with the point of, we've also got Gertrude, by the way, lads, who's an international player with great experience on the continent. What a fantastic situation to have. I'll just finish that point quickly though about Rigg. He's another great player to have there. I'm trying to think of synonyms for options, and I can't think of one just now. But this is a lad who loads of people are talking about as a real prospect. Let's give him a game. If he's out on the right, he can still come into the middle if we need it and help out there. I wouldn't mind him playing. The left wing is a bit more, in my mind, open for debate. There's one or two who could have a decent chance. There again, there's a name we've not even mentioned today, Talby. Talby's had a good start. For all we know, he might be getting lined up for a position as wing back this weekend. There's so many possibilities.
That's a great synonym to finish on.
Possibilities, not options.
Yes, that's the one. Well, let's finish on talking about possibilities. Let's finish on predictions, and I'll start with you, Bomber. How do you feel it's going to go?
I'm not going to predict anything other than a Sunderland win here, because obviously it is a must-win game. So we're going to treat it as such. Wolves have picked up recently. They were very unlucky not to win at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I think they were. Was it Brighton as well last time out? They were not too far away from 3 points and ended up with a draw. So they're not, even though they're sat at the bottom of the league win list, they're not in the kind of runs at the moment that, you know, they're picking up. They're not the Wolves that got thumped 4-0 from Man City back in August. So I think we have to be cautious not to be complacent. And I think it'll be a lot tougher game than the odds might suggest. But I will go with a 1-0 win. I don't think Wolves necessarily have enough to threaten us massively at the Stadium of Light. We've been very good defensively at the Stadium of Light. And I think we'll clinch a 1-0.
Yeah, well, Johnny, Bomber thinks we're going to nick it. And actually, speaking to Johnny Phillips, he said the performances have been there for Wolves this season. They're just not necessarily getting the results. I'm not quite sure this is going to be as easy as we maybe think to get these 3 points this weekend.
Certainly not going to be a walkover, is it? Yeah, it's a really tough one. I expect it to be a tight game, which I think I might have said that before every prediction this season, actually. Spoilers, yeah, there's going to be a lot of tight games this season. But no, I really do think this is going to be tight because I think without Diarra, and obviously Siddiqui a question mark, but even just without Diarra, I don't think we've got the pure legs in the midfield to do what we did to West Ham on that first day of the season, where I really think we ran them to death as much as we did anything else. I still do fancy us. I think we'll win the game, but I think it's going to be a really close one. I do expect Wolves to turn up and play, at least play all right. You know, it's not going to feel like playing a team with 2 points from 7 games. Put it that way. I think we'll win. I think it'll be 2-1 to Sunderland because I feel like Wolves have been so bad in front of goal this season that it's got to turn for them at some point. So I reckon they'll score. But yeah, I'm going to go with 2-1 to Sunderland because I do still feel reasonably confident. And I think, yeah, fuck it. Robbie's going to score both.
There you go. So that's 2 Sunderland wins. Andrew, what do you think?
Full house. I am sat here listening to these 2 lads genuinely making a lot of sense, making a lot of points that I wish I was intelligent enough to make. And yet I'm still going to disagree. Let's be confident. Let's not see this as a possible clash between 2 teams scrapping at the bottom. Let's see this as a team who are currently mid-table playing a team who are out of form. I'm going to go 3-0. Here's another name we haven't mentioned. How have we gone this long without mentioning Robin Roofs? What an absolute class performer we've got. So I'm tipping him to get a well-deserved clean sheet. And yeah, I like our chances. I can see us doing well and everybody walking back home over that bridge being full of the joys of life and thinking, hey, we're going to be all right this season.
Andrew, I thought you'd lost your mind and you were about to predict Robin Roos for the first goal scorer.
I did as well.
Yeah, go on. His distribution's so good. If his shooting's as good as his distribution, let's hem Wolves in. He can just, eke out of goal and try what am I on about?
There's a strong breeze coming off the weir.
Yeah. I was going to say he could ping one in from 30 yards, but even I'm not that optimistic. No, he's a great keeper. He is going to win us points this season. For me, I think he'll be fancying a clean sheet, and in front of him, let's go for Wolves and let's see if we can give him a bit of a beating.
Yeah, well, full house with you 3. I'm going to be slightly more boring, and I'm going to go for a goalless draw. I think it's going to be a tight one, and that's my predictions. But anyway, I think
you're not predicting any goals from the keepers or anything like that. You just go 0-0.
I'm going to be Andrew, and I'm going to go.
I prefer you as Uncle Chris, to be fair.
Not much action at all. Goalless draw, but I think that's a good place to leave us. So thank you very much, Andrew, as always.
Brilliant. Cheers, Chris.
And cheers, Bon Masawaku. Thank you very much, mate.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody. Pleasure as always.
And thanks again, Johnny.
Pleasure was all mine.
Good stuff. And thanks again, everyone, for listening. Don't forget, we'll have all the immediate reaction after the final whistle with a pod that should drop very soon after, which I think this week is from the pub. So hopefully there'll be much rejoicing in the bar with the lads. So don't miss out on that. We'll, of course, have all the reaction on the Roker Report website as well, so look out for that as well. But from us, bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.